efficiency and flexibility and hospitality that she's shown in all stages of preparing for this this year's retreat. And thank you very much. And if there was one of the annual or the biannual heritage fairs was here. I looked in about an hour ago, and the whole place has been completely transformed in that hour. So they worked very hard. So welcome to you all, and over the next week we follow a pilgrimage, pilgrimage of the Spirit, through the mysteries of Holy Week, as we reflect on the Paschal mystery, on the life, the death, the resurrection of Jesus, and as we tell that story and relive the meanings of that story, I think each of us can understand the story of our own lives more fully and feel how our own lives are enlightened and blessed, consoled or awakened by contact with the meaning of his story. And it's a preparation, of course, for the liturgies of Easter, which are ancient rituals that we could enter into with closed minds and in a rather mechanistic way, or that we can enter into really as mysteries and find ourselves being touched and being awakened in ways that we didn't expect. So preparing for those liturgical experiences, I think, is important, and to do that here on Bere Island, where you've come on a physical pilgrimage, is a very special opportunity. My own connection with the island goes back through my mother, and it's rather peculiar but wonderful set of circumstances that that led to the fact that I spend time here regularly, and that it has become a very important place in the life of our community worldwide, in fact. We had the Irish National Retreat here a few months ago, but it's become an important part of the spirit and the life of our community worldwide. And I'm sure, as we were very lucky with our weather committee, who produced a really fantastic opening day, and we were sitting actually in the kitchen this morning at my house, and somebody said, "Oh, it looks as if the weather's getting worse," and then a minute later he said, "No, I think it's getting better." And that tends to be the pattern of the weather here. But when it is like this, we see all the colours of life with great vividness, and even on the wet and windy days it has its own beauty. So I hope you'll see some of the variety. And that variety of weather, of course, reflects the variety of our own experiences and of the phases of our own lives. The joys and the griefs, the losses and the breakthroughs. Our own lives have many different weather patterns. And those of you who have had the good fortune or the grace of discovering meditation as part of your life will know that there's a very special gift in placing meditation into your daily life. Some of you have discovered that and made that part of your life for maybe many years. And you have discovered, I'm sure, that regular daily rhythm of meditation takes you through the different weather patterns, or the good days and the bad days, with a deepening sense of meaning and stability. And those of you, some of you have perhaps dabbled a little bit with meditation, read about it, maybe even gone to a retreat once or twice, or visited a meditation group, and you have tasted it and would like to develop it more, but then something happened and that rhythm got interrupted, or maybe you hit a bad weather pattern in your meditation and you got discouraged and gave up, or maybe you just got too busy. So I hope that whether you are a regular meditator or an on-off meditator, or even maybe quite new to it, and this is the first time that is usually the case. There's usually at least one person there who's walked in thinking that they were coming to something else and find themselves on a meditation retreat. I hope that for each of us there will be something to learn, something to be enriched by. What I'd like to focus on in the talks will be the stages of the journey. It's difficult to map out a spiritual journey any more than it is no less than it is to sketch out the phases of our own lives, because we are a story under construction. We'll be telling the story of the passion and the death and the resurrection of Jesus, which in many ways is a historical event, although it's a historical event that has entered into our present experience. That's why it's worth telling and understanding. But in our own lives, even though we can sense how our lives have been touched by his life, the stages of our own life are still shifting. We don't know how long the phase we're in now will last, and so on. But so it's difficult to speak about the stages of a human journey. But on the other hand, there are patterns. There are identifiable stages on the spiritual journey. Some people may take 25 years in one stage, and another person might take, 3 weeks. There's a huge amount of individual variety, but there is at the same time a human pattern that we all follow in some way, simply because we are human. So we can talk about these stages, and there are many ways we could describe them, of course. And if you look at the mystical tradition, you'll find many different ways of describing the spiritual journey. And I'd like to draw on one of those descriptions over the next few days from an early master of the Christian spiritual tradition, a monk. We know he was a monk, but we don't know much more about him, called St. Peter of Damascus. And he's he wrote quite a lot, although we don't know much about him, probably about the 10th or 11th century. And he's one of the best represented figures in this great collection or anthology of mystical texts called the Philokalia, or the Philokalia, if you want to be precise. And then there's one of his sections is called the 8 Stages of Contemplation, and it's full of interesting and helpful insights, which I think we clearly have to translate into our own language, and on occasions it may seem very foreign, even a bit off-putting, but there's a wisdom there that can really illuminate, I think, our own journey. So I'll be drawing on some of those passages. We don't know much about him, except, as I said, that he was a pretty open-minded monk of his day, and he believed that the experience of continuous prayer was open to everybody, absolutely regardless of whatever state of life they were in. And that's not always the case. There's many traditions. I met Buddhist monks who had said they didn't really believe that lay people could meditate, that you needed to be in a monastic environment under strict vows in order to really get into the serious stages of the spiritual life. And that's true, that you find that in the Christian camp as well. But in all these traditions too, there are teachers like John Main who had a very clear insight that this is open to all, that the message of human fulfillment is not restricted to particular lifestyles or personalities. So our friend Peter of Damascus is one of these more open-minded and insightful figures. He was also quite a moderate person, and that's also something to admire in spiritual figures of this kind, because sometimes they can become a little one-sided, they can become a little extreme, a little fanatical even. And to maintain a balance, a spirit of moderation, adds a lot to the trust that you feel, or the authority that you give to a teacher of this kind. And he certainly is one of the great teachers of moderation, avoiding extremes. And he was also a great advocate of imageless prayer, which is what meditation is in our understanding of it, going beyond words and thoughts and images, and teaching us that we can do this, that this is maybe not easy, but it's a practice that we can build into our lives and thereby enrich all aspects of our lives. And but at the same time, as we'll see on occasions in these texts, he gives a lot of value to reflection upon the life of Jesus, upon the gospel stories, and particularly upon the passion and the death and the resurrection of Jesus. So the accounts of these stories that we find in the Gospels. And I think that's also an important combination for us to be aware of, especially this week. Focus of our rhythm of life together this week is going to be meditation, times of meditation together. But we're doing it in the context of Holy Week and focusing upon the Easter liturgies at the end of the week. And I'll go over the timetable a little bit just before we finish this evening session. He, like many of the teachers of his era, Peter of Damascus speaks a lot about the need for purification, even as he calls it the tears of compunction. And that's language that we don't relate to very easily today. We don't like people to tell us that we should have the gift of tears. But there was actually a great wisdom which is still relevant to us in that language if we can unpack it. And some of it we've lost. Some of that wisdom has drained away with our psychology and our own sort of understanding of happiness or of fulfillment. So it will be interesting, I hope, to look at some of that language and to see what he really means by purification, why he thinks that the tears of compunction can help us on our journey to wholeness and to happiness. Let me just begin by describing the way of meditation to you in this tradition that he himself would have followed. In the tradition of the Eastern Church, meditation is usually called the prayer of the heart, or hesychasm. The word hesychasm means stillness or silence. And in the Western Church, of course, for a long period, this whole contemplative dimension of prayer, especially for lay people, got marginalized or lost. And it's one of the hopeful signs in the modern church in recent decades that this dimension is being recovered. And perhaps the trials and tribulations and the shameful aspects of the institutional church's life in recent years, no less than here in Ireland, I think, is due to the incredible imbalance that we fell into. That a whole dimension of Christian life got skewed and lost. And we were walking through life, you know, with one arm and one eye, you know, walking in a confused and in a blurred way. So the recovery of this contemplative dimension of prayer has been, and is one of the really hopeful signs for the renewal of Christianity in our time. The word meditation comes from, or is similar to the word medicine. And the prefix med, M-E-D, suggests, in the Greek form, suggests care and attention. So we can relate to that easily enough. When you go to a hospital, you go for medical care, medical attention, and you expect that the person giving you that care is paying attention to you, giving you their attention. You don't feel very comfortable if you realise that the doctor or nurse is distracted when they're supposed to be caring for you. And that's true in our private lives, in our intimate relationships, or in our marriages or communities or families or friendships. This quality of attention in caring for each other is really what makes the quality of our lives. If that quality of care and attention is diminished or damaged, then it damages not only the quality of our lives, but even the survival of the relationship. So we have to work at care and attention in our relationships. And it's a two-way process, of course. We all like to receive attention, we all like to be cared for, but also we have to give care and give attention, even at times when that's not what we feel like doing. So, if we can understand meditation at this very basic level of human relationship as giving care and attention at the primary level, in a sense, to ourselves. It's not self-indulgent, it's not self-centered, it's not narcissistic. In fact, it's the opposite of all those things. But it is, in a real sense, loving ourselves, which is, for many of us, one of the most difficult things we ever have to learn, truly how to love ourselves. And especially if we've had experiences early in life which make us feel that we're not lovable. Those are very deep-rooted patterns and deep-rooted assumptions that it can take a long time to correct or to transcend. So just thinking first of all of meditation itself as a process of care and attention to oneself, to the deeper self, not just to our ego with all its variabilities, with all its shadow side and so on, but to the true self, to the true person that we are, who we may not yet fully know, of course, but who we sense that we are. And the very first thing we discover whenever we do pay attention or try to give sustained care is that it isn't easy to sustain it. That paying attention is okay for 2 or 3 seconds, or for the length of a TV commercial sometimes, but to maintain that attention over a period of time and to go through the bad weather and the good weather patterns while maintaining that quality of care and attention is quite challenging. And none of us do it perfectly. There's no marriage, there's no community, there's no friendship, probably there's no professional relationship for that matter, that hasn't failed on many occasions to keep up the highest standard of care and attention. And then we suddenly catch ourselves, or we find the relationship's gone into meltdown or suffering, and you need to do something about it. Now, the same is true of meditation. In a way, meditation is about developing and building on the primary relationship we have with ourselves. When Jesus was asked what is the first commandment, he said to love God and then your neighbour as yourself. And that's a theological way of putting it. That's the kind of, if we took in the great design, that's how it works. The love of God, the love of neighbour, and the love of self. And he said these are really form one commandment. They're one truth there. There's one law of love there. These are not three different commandments. We can pick and choose, or we do one first and then the second. But in psychological terms, in terms of our own human journey, we actually start the other way round. We start with ourselves, with the love of self. And as I said, that's not as easy or as straightforward as it may sound. It's not just about taking time for ourselves, it's not just about being good to ourselves, it's not just about indulging ourselves a bit. It's a deeper and indeed more spiritual meaning than that. So the love of self, of course, or the care of oneself, the attention to oneself or relationship to yourself, that's what determines our relationships with others. If we're not at peace with ourselves, then, as we all know, we take it out on somebody. We look for someone to be the scapegoat or to take the blame, and we project, as onto a lightning conductor, what's going on. The storm in ourselves gets transmitted to somebody else. That's pretty common in all human relationships, isn't it? And that's why it is important, if we want to love our neighbour and love God, that we have to do this work of loving ourselves. So that's why it's important, I think, to see the relationship here between what you might call the mystical and the moral. The mystical is getting down into the work, doing it. And the moral is the lifestyle and that flows out of that, what we do as a result of that. So the mystical doesn't mean that we're levitating, it doesn't mean we're developing paranormal powers, all of that, according to all the great spiritual traditions, in fact, and you find the same thing in our friend Peter of Damascus, is irrelevant to the spiritual side of things. It's not about miracles. It's not about extraordinary powers. It's not about becoming superhuman. Not like becoming Superman with magical elements of Krypton or whatever it was. That isn't what we mean by the spiritual journey. And in fact, they even go further than that, the great teachers, or the sound teachers, because they say all of this stuff has to be avoided, if at all possible, and if you're lucky, you will avoid it. And if it does happen, then really don't get hooked on it. It could easily, inflate your ego. You can easily feel that you're actually becoming a very spiritual person because some of these odd things have happened to you. And also be very careful that you don't sort of get boastful or proud about it. So John Main, in his teaching on meditation, follows in exactly the same moderate, sound, healthy common sense, if you like. He says, when you meditate, nothing will happen, or don't expect anything to happen during the meditation, and if anything does happen, ignore it. Now that's not perhaps the most exciting advice if you want to levitate or you want to have even altered states of consciousness. There are other ways you can go for altered states of consciousness. But they are precisely that. They're altering states, they're weather patterns, or they are experiences that come and go. And John Main's advice when we sit down to meditate is to leave all of those demands which the ego may have. I want something to happen to make me feel that I'm really getting something out of this, that it's worth my investment of time, you know, and I'm really trying hard, therefore I should be getting something out of it. So those are the demands. Or expectations, that you're sure somehow, you hope somehow that extraordinary things will happen. So the really first base in learning to meditate is to put all of that in the garbage bin, right from the beginning. Sometimes quite difficult to do because it seems a bit strange. Why should I do something without any demands or expectations? And so we do actually carry some demands and expectations into the journey when we begin. Even we may not be consciously or deliberately expecting or demanding something, but we're kind of half hoping that something will happen. If we can really let go of those demands and expectations, or as much as we can, what we then realize is that we are on a journey of faith. And that's when things really do start to happen. Faith really does move mountains. It's not magic. When Jesus, often on many occasions when he heals people, and the crowd of course thinks this is a real miracle worker here, he says to the person he's healed, your faith has healed you. Now there is something wonderful happening here. There's something very important that we should try to understand, but it's not magic, and it relates as much in a sense to our own faith as it is to the action of God or to grace. So this is the best way we could begin, if possible, to meditate, without those demands and expectations, and understanding what a journey of faith means. And the best way to understand it, to learn about it, is of course to practice it. But because it's unfamiliar territory, because the inevitable question is, when will something happen, or how do I know if I'm doing it right? It's very difficult, I think, to get started in meditation without some help. To do it entirely on your own is virtually, I don't say it's impossible, but it's very difficult. Simply because if we are really to get into this as a way of faith, we have to let go of so much. And then that means that we have to feel supported at the same time. This opens up completely new and wonderful and unexpected aspects of the spiritual journey, which is community or friendship. Spiritual friendship is perhaps the biggest support anyone could find for the journey. And it's not knowledge, it's not reading, it's not how much you know. The real support comes from this grace of spiritual friendship. Ask anybody in the 12-step program, and I think they would tell you the same thing. It's in many ways, of course, in very real ways, the 12-step program is a spiritual journey. And the mentoring and the friendship and the fellowship is absolutely central to the healing process, or the restoration of balance and health and integration. And it's the same in meditation as a spiritual journey. So, having said that, let me just track to the practice. When we meditate, we are laying aside our thoughts. That's how some of the contemporaries of St. Peter of Damascus expressed it. The laying aside of thoughts. It's a good way of describing meditation because it's so simple and so clear. Meditation is not what you think. And when we get into the meditation in a minute, one of the most difficult things that we have to do is to realize just that the answer or the goal or what we are looking for, and of course there is a purpose to meditation, is not something that we can achieve by thought. You can solve many problems by clear thinking, rational thinking, facing things as they are, telling it as it is. That a good clear mind, which meditation helps to create, can solve many problems and bring you to lots of values and virtues. But in meditation, we're not problem solving, we're not answer seeking. And therefore, we lay aside our thoughts. So what we are actually doing is entering into a kind of experience in which, putting it this way, God is not something or someone that we're looking at, but much more a reality, a presence, an experience that we enter into, that we find ourselves in, that we participate in. So that's why we let go of thinking about God, because we can never know God by thought. We can never imagine this experience, in fact. And therefore, the laying aside of thoughts, the letting go of images and imagination, and letting go of the words that we like to use to dress up our thoughts, letting go of all of that at the time of the meditation is itself the spiritual work. It has psychological consequences. It will de-stress you. It will make you feel calmer. It will give you a break from your problems. It will interrupt some negative mental and emotional patterns. So it's very good for you, as medical science knows. But what you're actually experiencing in the deeper sense is what the spiritual tradition calls poverty of spirit. And that is a very difficult phrase to make sense of, because it sounds negative, it even sounds a bit masochistic. To get into poverty of spirit, try to make yourself suffer as much as possible, or deprive yourself of things that you like. It doesn't mean that at all, so we should really have another phrase for it probably. But it makes you think about what it does really mean. Poverty of spirit is much more about detachment, not rejection, not suppression, not repression, but simply detachment, not being attached to our usual way of seeing things, not being attached to the strong positive or negative emotions that are in us and control our state of mind, usually. Not being controlled by the desires that we have, or the anxieties that we have, or the fears that rise up within us. Poverty of spirit is about the ability to accept and enjoy the gift of life, with all its weather patterns, and yet at the same time not trying to possess it. So it's non-possessiveness, it's openness to the gift, and of course the more open you are to the gift and to the source of the gift, the more you get. So poverty of spirit is the best way actually to increase your capacity, to expand your capacity for life, in depth, in quality, and in meaning. So the letting go of thoughts, of words and images is the work we're doing in the meditation, and that's why we're doing it, so we can become poor in spirit. Free is another word. If you think of how many of our states of mind at any one minute are controlled by a small number of experiences or a small number of emotions. It's strange then to realize how our whole life, the whole full range of our humanity, is as it were tied down and incapacitated by very few things, very few attachments. We're a bit like Gulliver in Gulliver's Travels, you know. We're pinned down on the ground by all these little things. Now, some of those little things are not so little. They might be enormous losses, or they might be deep levels of insecurity that we have. I was talking to somebody the other day who had just been promoted in a big organisation, very well-known organisation, to a very high position, just below the top person, and they were very unexcited about it. And they said when they were actually informed about it, the thought that, you know, that they said, "Oh, thank you very much, I'm very honoured," you know. But the thought in their head, this person's head, was, "Oh no, I really don't want this." And I said, "Well, why not say no? You're enjoying your life now." And they said, "I can't do that because everybody expects me to take it, and everybody would think I was crazy." And in modern corporate life, if I hadn't heard this expression before, in modern corporate life, if you're not hungry, then somebody else will eat you. This is the jungle we've created for ourselves in our business world. So you know, there was an attachment. They weren't attached to the job, but they were attached to their own feeling of inadequacy and a sense of low self-worth. I just don't think I just can't believe that anybody would ever give this job to me because I'm such an incompetent person. Well, clearly they were, because they were. So that's the kind of attachment we may be talking about. It's not you know, attached to your material possessions or even to your position or to people in your life even. It could be that kind of attachment to some negative state of mind. So poverty of spirit breaks that up. That's why all the medical and the scientific research done on meditation says very clearly that we benefit from meditation. Just the practice, regardless of the spiritual dimension of it, or the faith dimension, or the tradition in which you meditate, just by doing it, you lower your blood pressure, and improve your cholesterol, and boost your immune system. It helps you deal with chronic pain. It helps you deal with anxiety or stress. It helps you to control your anger, and so on and so on. All of these results are based upon scientific research, not upon any spiritual approach to it. Now those are the benefits of meditation. And the good news is you get all those benefits and more if you do approach meditation, I think, with a deeper view of our humanity, that we are more than our cholesterol or our blood pressure or our de-stressing needs. That the spiritual fruits of meditation are very real. maybe less easy to measure than your cholesterol, but very real. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, fidelity, gentleness, self-control. You can't measure those so easily, can you? But you can feel them. You can, over a period of time, see that they're developing, and the person or the people you live with or work with will notice it, maybe even before you do. So these are the fruits that indicate that something is at work in you, which we can really call the Spirit of God expanding and transforming us from within. When you teach children to meditate, and you ask the children, do they like it? They say yes. It's peaceful. They say it's calm, it's relaxing, it's nice. They speak about the benefits of meditation. But if you speak to the parents or the teachers about how the children respond, you'll find that they really describe it more in terms of the fruits. They're more peaceful, and the kids are more joyful. They don't bully each other so much. They're more loving and nicer to each other in the classroom, that sort of thing. So these are different perspectives on the same experience, and you need to see both, the value of both as well. So how do we do that? In this tradition, the way is a way of simplicity. And we take a word, a single word, a prayer word, a mantra, sacred word, and we repeat the word or the phrase continually in the mind and heart during the time of attention, and we say the word carefully and attentively, with care and attention. So that's where the care and attention become real. You actually do it. Choosing the word is important because you want to stay with the same word all the way through, from the beginning to the end. And you stay with the same word every day. If you meditate daily, morning and evening, stay with the same word. And what this will help happen is what Peter of Damascus says is the awakening or the arousing of continuous prayer. Now that doesn't mean you become a God fanatic, always speaking about God or always thinking about God or always using religious language and becoming very pious. That probably is not a sign of continuous prayer. It may well be just a sign of a little bit of neurosis. But continuous prayer means experiencing the flow of the Spirit of God in you and feeling its pervasive effect as it were seeps into and penetrates every aspect of your being, physical, you feel better, physical, emotional, mental, psychological and spiritual. So continuous prayer is simply really turning the tap on, as it were, opening ourselves to this flow and letting it in, letting it out, letting it flow, so that it becomes, it accompanies us throughout all the various activities of the day, regardless of what kind of weather it is, what kind of mood we're in even. This is the important thing. Your moods, of course, are important. Your suffering is important. Your hopes and joys are important. Nevertheless, there is something always deeper than that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be fully human. We're capable of touching into the ground of our being and realizing what an infinite space, infinite resource that ground is. So, saying the word continually allows the word to sort of sink deep into the heart, become rooted there, and then it just continues this flow of the Spirit. as it flows into, it's a pure stream of, like the water on Bere Island. It's pure, and it purifies the whole of our system. This is what the mystical writers like Peter here mean by purification. It's you purify something that is impure by increasing its purity, rather than by attacking the impure things. And we have that pure source, or that source of pure goodness, of pure love, of pure being. We have that within us. So just turn the tap on a little bit more and let more of it out, more of it through us. That's continuous prayer. So that's why we stay with the same word. Choosing the word. You could take the name Jesus, or the word Abba. The word I would recommend is the word Maranatha. The word Maranatha is an ancient Christian prayer. It means "Come Lord." It's in Aramaic, the language that Jesus spoke. It means, it's a sacred word even for the very early Christians. And it's also a good word because of its length and the sound of the word. If you choose that word, say it as 4 syllables: Ma, Ra, Na, Tha. Articulate the word clearly in your mind and heart. Don't visualize the word, but say it as a sound, as it were, and listen to it, but articulate it clearly, gently. You're not using force, so don't let the ego get too much into the saying of the mantra. Just say it gently, but say it faithfully. And to do something gently and faithfully means a little bit of finesse. It's a little bit of it's a good balance is required. So sometimes people are too gentle, which means they don't, they sort of give up saying the mantra very quickly and just go on a walkabout mentally. They just float and just sort of drift on the stream of their thoughts and emotions. Or, on the other hand, according to your personality or your mood perhaps, you try too hard. So you become a real sort of a-personality type meditator, and you're determined to break this as quickly as possible. So, as with anything else of significance, we need to balance this. So the gentleness means the ego is not taking over, and the faithfulness means that you stick with it. You're really committed to this. You really are in it for the long haul, as it were, and you're going to go through different weather patterns without giving up. So let's take our time for meditation now, and to open the retreat. And let's take a moment to sit upright. Move the shoulders around a little bit. Straighten up, loosen up. Basic rule of keeping your back straight and keeping your feet on the ground if you're sitting on a chair like this reminds us that the body is very much part of our spiritual journey, and the split between body and mind and spirit is a false one. And the body can help us to really ground our spiritual life. We believe in the incarnation, we believe in the resurrection of the body, although in different forms, but the body is the body forever. And so, just taking a moment to physically prepare yourself, that's why we'll have the yoga every morning as well, is a good reminder of the nature of the journey we're making. It's a way of integration, a way of harmony. So relax your shoulders, relax the muscles of your face. Just take a few breaths and pay attention to those breaths as you take them. As you feel the air coming in through your nostrils, filling all the cells and molecules, and breathing out gently. And every time we breathe out, we are practicing poverty of spirit, the letting go. And that's what enables us to breathe in again. If we didn't breathe out, we couldn't breathe in. That's why John Main says meditation is as natural to the spirit as breathing is to the body. There's no strict rule about how to say the mantra, and you don't want to become too technique-minded about it. However, many people say it with their breathing, and you could say the mantra as you breathe in, Maranatha, and breathe out in silence. Or you could say the first two syllables as you breathe in, Ma-ra, and Na-tha as you breathe out. Don't get hung up on that. Just say it naturally, gently, and you'll find your own rhythm. The mantra will find its own rhythm with practice. So close your eyes lightly. Try and sit as still as you can. That stillness of body is immensely useful and will help to bring you to an interior stillness. Try to be as quiet as you can so that we can build up a silence among us that will support each one of us. And that will bring us to an interior silence. And then silently, in your mind and heart, begin to say your word, Maranatha. Ma-ra-na-tha. Ma-ra-na-tha. Let's end with these words from the Gospel of Luke. They asked Jesus, "When will the kingdom of God come?" And he replied, You cannot tell by observation when the kingdom of God will come. You cannot say, look, here it is, or there it is, because in fact the kingdom of God is within you. The kingdom of God is among you. Good. So we'll have opportunities on other days for some conversation and discussion.